cold-blooded. Now, there's a special kind of mistake that you can only make when you know better, not when you're confused, not when nobody warned you. I mean, looking directly at the fire, knowing exactly what fire does, and deciding that for tonight, the warmth is well worth it. Now, that's cold-blooded. And the waning gibbous, the old king, Negrito, karmic reckoning, hour 6, the midpoint. This is when the Senex is confronted. The song begins with a father warning his son. If you see her coming, better run, run, run. Now, the father has apparently survived some version of this before, and he knows what's coming, and he knows how it ends. And he's trying to pass this lesson backward through time. Unfortunately, he gives this information to a young man, which is the one period of life when good advice is mostly treated as decorative. Well, because when you're young and someone says, if you see her coming, better run, run, run. Well, you don't hear the word run. You hear, she's coming. And you need to learn by experience, right? Yeah, for a night or two, it'll be fun. And that's how most destructive patterns introduce themselves, right? Not as addiction, not as regret, not as 40 years of karmic reckoning that will eventually require therapy, philosophy, and perhaps a suspicious amount of incense. They arrive as fun. And the waning gibbous, the old king, the karmic reckoning, this is hour 6, the midpoint. This is when the Senex is confronted. The narrator moves through an entire lifetime in 3 verses. First, when I was young, and then, now I'm a man, barely full grown, and finally, now I'm gray and getting closer to my grave. His age changes, his language changes, the consequences compound. But the reaching remains exactly the same as the young man. He's been warned. As an adult, he knows he walked directly into the warning. Sorry, Daddy, if I let you down. And as an old man, he wishes he could recover those years. Wish I could say I could get back those days. But even then, even with the grave getting closer, he still says, I just can't let her be. And that may be the most important line in the entire song. Because this is no longer ignorance. This is pattern, not hiding. He sees it. He understands it. He can describe exactly what it does. He has written a very catchy chorus about it. And apparently, that is still not enough to make him stop. So, what do we do about this knowledge? Well, in comes the old king. And archetypally, this character, the old king, or Senex as Carl Jung called it, at his best, the old king represents maturity, discernment, experience, wisdom, sovereignty. And he has lived long enough to understand consequence, but the shadow of the old king is rigidity. He knows the lesson, but he cannot embody it. He can explain the pattern. He might even warn somebody younger about that pattern. But when the moment of choice arrives, the wisdom remains trapped in his head. If he never reaches his hands, it never reaches his feet. It never changes what he does next. And that's a brutal place to live. Knowing exactly where the road goes while continuing to take the same exit. Now, so, who is this killer? And on the surface, the cold-blooded killer is a woman. That's the blues story, right? She's dangerous, seductive, irresistible, and apparently capable of ruining several decades with remarkable efficiency. But archetypally, she becomes something larger. She can be lust, addiction, chaos, validation, fame, the road, the next drink, the next person who briefly makes you feel whole, or the version of yourself who only feels alive when something is burning. So is whatever you keep reaching for after you've already understand the price her? And listen to the contradiction in the narrator's language. He says, she got me, she won't let go. But he also says, yeah, you gotta give it to me. She was him, but he is reaching for her. She will not let go, but he cannot let her go. The language of possession hides his participation. It's easier to say, this thing has power over me. It's much harder to say, some part of me still wants this thing and what it gives me. Now, that awareness is true power. Because there's a killer within, and Jung used the word anima for the unrecognized inner life that a man may project onto a woman. His emotion, imagination, sensuality, longing, chaos, and desire. When those parts remain unconscious, another person can seem to possess supernatural power. She becomes salvation and also destruction, the answer and the enemy. The one person who finally makes you feel alive, but some of what you are seeing in her belongs to you. Now, that does not mean another person cannot hurt you. It does not excuse manipulation, betrayal, or abuse. It means that external danger and internal participation can both be real simultaneously. The cold-blooded killer may exist outside of him, but the appetite that keeps opening the door belongs to him until he recognizes that every repetition will feel like fate. Now, the father tells him to run, and sometimes running is absolutely the right move. Leave the person, leave the room, block the number, pour it out, get help, create distance before the pattern destroys everything else. But you can run from the object and carry the appetite with you. You can leave one relationship and rebuild it with a different face. You can quit one addiction and quietly promote another behavior into the same position. And you can escape the chaos and then begin manufacturing it because in yourself, peace feels unfamiliar. The object changes, but the hunger remains. That is why the deeper path is not merely avoidance, it's awareness. It's turning toward the hunger and asking, what does this give me? Well, who do I become while I'm inside of it? What feeling does it help me avoid? And what would I have to face if I finally let it go? There lies the spell. That's the truth and the true knowledge and power behind it all. Now, let's talk about the trap, because all of this arrives inside of a groove that feels good, because temptation rarely introduces itself as funeral music. It struts. The lyrics tell you that she's a killer. The riff makes you want to meet her. The father says, run. The groove says, come closer. So the music places us inside the same contradiction as the narrator. Our minds hear the warning. Our bodies hear the invitation. The groove is the trapdoor. Now, the wound. By the third verse, the narrator says, wish I could say I could get back those days. The wish itself is the wound. The days are gone. Time does not negotiate, no matter how sincerely you regret spending it. But regret is only useful when it changes the next decision. Otherwise, it becomes another form of repetition. The cycle, unless you make the choice, you hate yourself for making the choice, then the shame sends you back toward the thing that briefly helps you forget the shame. The pattern eats both the pleasure and the punishment. That is why understanding your wound is not the same as changing the behavior it creates. Now, I've had patterns I could explain long before I could stop participating in them. That's the truth. Sometimes self-awareness becomes camouflage, and you can romanticize suffering. You think, I understand why I do this, so I must be changing. But you become an expert in your own wound. You can analyze it. You can name it. Write about it. You can even put it in a tune. Sometimes a song is not a victory speech. Sometimes it's surveillance footage. But there's power in that awareness. Now, the tragedy of Cold-Blooded is not that nobody warned him. He heard the warning. Tragedy is that the boy, the man, and the old king all keep choosing the same thing for different reasons. But awareness still matters, because the moment you can observe the hunger, you are no longer completely identical to it. You may still hear her calling. You may still want to answer. But now there's another voice in the room. The father, the younger man, the old king, all finally speaking at once. So here's the question. What do you keep choosing even though you already know where it leads? Even if it leads to death? Right to the version of yourself who existed just before the pattern hardened. Don't tell them what you've been comforting. Tell them what would have been useful. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell them what the pattern promised. Tell them what it cost. And then read the letter as though it was written for the part of you still making that choice today. Is the cold-blooded killer? The path is not merely avoidance. The path is the descent. Meet her consciously, because awareness is true power, and that's cold.